Chairman, and thank you, Dr. Orszag. I think we agree that President Obama inherited a very challenging situation, and Doug Elmendorf, head of CBO, last week testified that without the extraordinary impact of the recovery package, and we could be in quite a different place without that very bold effort to stop the job loss. But we also know that unemployment or employment is a lagging indicator, and I happen to represent some communities that have been very, very hard hit. One community in particular has 18% unemployment. Others hover around, another one hovers around 12%, kind of goes up and down a little bit, but basically remains unchanged. So I applaud the efforts that the President has proposed in the State of the Union address and that we see in the budget here today. But I'm wondering, do you have benchmarks in place? Are you going to be able to assess whether or not these initiatives are working? You know, I've had a proposal out there that we need to do some direct job creation, that the federal government needs to get engaged around direct job creation, particularly targeted to communities that have been particularly hard hit. And we don't see a lot of that kind of discussion today, so I'm wondering if that was ever on the table, if there's ever a point at which you say these tax credits are not having the impact that we need, especially in those parts of the country that just are dealing with extraordinary circumstances.
Will the gentlelady yield?
Yes,
I wish to associate myself with her remarks 100%. Thank you.
While we were evaluating different ways of trying to attack this problem of a weak labor market, we evaluated a whole series of proposals. And so I'm not going to go into full internal deliberations, but rest assured that there were a wide array of options that were scrutinized, evaluated, before coming to the conclusion that we should focus where we did. And I would just come back again and say, do not forget that the Recovery Act, because of the Recovery Act, there are 1.5 to 2 million people today who would otherwise be unemployed who have jobs. It's a huge accomplishment. There's more that needs to be done. The unemployment rate's too high. That jobs deficit reflecting the job losses that have occurred since December 2007 is a hole that needs to be filled in, but it would be substantially worse without the Recovery Act.
But with these tax credits, I mean, are you going to look to a specific number of jobs created on a month-to-month basis in order to say this is working, this isn't? We really need to revisit it and come up with something that is more targeted to communities that have been particularly hard hit.
I think we would welcome the additional kind of transparency and evaluation that's been built into the Recovery Act into additional jobs efforts if the Congress also agrees that that would be worthwhile.
Because as I talk to my colleagues on the floor who come from similar kinds of districts where we do see this extraordinary effort, and I applaud the administration for the Recovery Act, because I've seen in my district job after job that has been saved as a result of it, money spinning out into the private sector, primarily through the grant process to begin to jumpstart, for example, clean energy jobs. I think these tax credits for new hires are important, but they're still just this one element of our society that's been particularly hard hit and where we may need to do something more direct and the government directly engaged, get directly engaged. Thank you. I yield back.
I yield back. Mrs. Loomis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.